Welcome, everyone. See, we have a lot of people popping in. Good evening. Hi. See a thumbs up. Thank you. See those numbers keep going. I just want to say that we have opened the meeting, and we want to let all of you know as you're popping in that you are in the right place to participate in EPA's virtual PFAS community engagement meeting for Region 10. So I see the numbers are still going up a little bit, but I do want to let you know that to minimize background noise for everyone, you are all muted. So we will be starting in just a moment. Just welcome everyone as those numbers are going up a little bit more. Thank you for being here. My name is Laura Knutson, and I'm your moderator for this evening. I see we're petering out a wee bit. It's 6:01 p.m. So I just want to say welcome to everyone who is joining us virtually via Zoom or on the phone. And thank you all for taking time out of your busy lives to be with us. We have worked to accommodate virtual participation and to provide meaningful interpretation tonight. For those just joining us virtually, if you have any trouble, please reach out to info@pfascommunityengagement.org. And we can, I believe, put that in the chat at some point too, so that people know that that is the email. If you have any trouble, please reach out to that email. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Grace for our next slide to go over some Zoom webinar tips for this evening's session. I just want to say again before we transition to Grace that, because I see some numbers are still going up at 6:03, that you are in the right place. This is EPA's virtual PFAS community engagement meeting for Region 10. So thank you all for joining us virtually and on the phone. And with that, let's go to the next slide. And Grace, I'm gonna go ahead and hand it off to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Before we begin today's virtual community engagement session, we'd like to take a few minutes to review the webinar platform. First, a reminder that today's webinar is being recorded. All attendees are muted and in listen-only mode until the feedback portion of this session. During the second half of the session, we will open it up for feedback from individuals who have signed up to speak. We'll hear from those who signed up to share verbal feedback, and then there will be an opportunity for others to share comments. We will share specific instructions on how to use or how to share your feedback using your device mic during that portion of the session. Next slide, please. A quick overview of Zoom controls. You can adjust your audio and mic setting in the lower left corner of the Zoom navigation bar. You'll use the raise hand function if we have time at the end of the session for additional public feedback. Click show captions to turn on English closed captioning, and you can select what language you Next slide, please. There is an English and Spanish audio stream available for this session. To access the translated stream, you must listen via online audio in Zoom, not via the call-in number. Click the interpretation icon on the navigation bar in the lower part of the Zoom window to access your translation options. Select your preferred language, either English or Spanish. If you are listening in Spanish, it is recommended to mute original audio. This option is also located in the translation button. Next slide, please. And if you need any technical assistance with the Zoom platform during this session this evening, please email info@pfascommunityengagement.org. Okay, and I will turn it back over to Laura to begin this evening's session.
Thank you, Grace. And before we begin, next slide, please. Thank you. I just want to highlight this disclaimer that by participating in today's online event, you acknowledge and consent that your name, video, image, or phone number may be visible to others in the live online meeting, as well as captured in the recording. Thank you. And next slide, please. So I want to say first, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. As you know, tonight, we are going to focus on a class of chemicals known as PFAS, and we plan to both describe some of the work the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency is doing on these chemicals, and then to hear from many of you, which we really are excited for that piece. So thank you for being here tonight. We know you're all so busy, and we really appreciate you making the time to be here. My name is Laura Knutson, and I work for EPA Region 10 as a community involvement coordinator, and I am your moderator for today's session. It is my job to help keep our session organized and moving along this evening. We are virtual tonight, and we appreciate any patience if there are technical glitches or disruptions, and we will show all of you that same respect too, of course. We also have live interpretation. So I just want to emphasize that to have meaningful interpretation tonight, for those who may be listening in Spanish, we must speak a little bit slower so our interpreters may do that quality interpretation. I will help remind everyone of this if needed, including during the public feedback portion of tonight's session. Before we jump in, I just want to share a little bit about myself. I was very interested in moderating tonight's session because I have been tracking PFAS as an emerging contaminant for a long time, as I am sure many of you have tonight too, both nationally and in EPA Region 10. A couple years ago, I served on EPA's National PFAS Action Toolkit team that developed the resources explaining PFAS on EPA's PFAS website, which is www.epa.gov/PFAS. I'm sure a lot of you have been there. I am so excited and grateful to hear your feedback this evening, as are the rest of my EPA colleagues, because tackling the challenges that PFAS brings takes all of us working together and listening to each other. My hope tonight is that you can give feedback to us now and also in the future, so it can inform future actions EPA takes toward helping communities address PFAS contamination. Thank you all for joining us. And let's go to the next slide, please. So next, I just want to share with you our basic plan for this evening, so we're all on the same page. Right now, as you can tell, we are starting with the housekeeping and introductions. And next, we will hear a few words from EPA Region 10's Administrator, Casey Sixkiller. Then we will turn to a member of EPA's PFAS Council, Jennifer McLean. And then we will hear a bit from Michael Zerlog, who will share more about per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS, and also about EPA's work under the PFAS Strategic Roadmap. Following these remarks, we are really looking forward to hearing feedback from many of you during the listening session portion of today's event. We'll share more details about how you can participate in the listening session tonight when we get to that portion of the agenda. But next, it is my honor to introduce Casey Sixkiller, EPA's Regional Administrator for EPA Region 10. Casey, let's start with you.
Well, thank you, Laura. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm so excited that all of you have signed up to learn more about what we here in the EPA are doing to address PFAS. As Laura said, my name is Casey Sixkiller, and I'm the Regional Administrator for EPA's Region 10 office in the Pacific Northwest. Our region serves Alaska, Idaho, Oregon, the state of Washington, and 271 tribal nations. I also want to introduce Michael Zerlog, who leads Region 10's Laboratory Services and Applied Science Division, and is a member of my executive leadership team based here in Seattle. We are here today to talk about a group of chemicals called PFAS, as well as the efforts EPA is taking or considering to address these chemicals. And then, most importantly, as Laura said, we want to hear from you. You're going to hear more tonight from my colleagues, but PFAS, as many of you know, are widely used, long-lasting chemicals. Some often call them forever chemicals because they don't break down over time. There are thousands of different PFAS. Studies show that certain PFAS can have serious public health and environmental impacts, and we continue to learn more about the human health and environmental effects of these chemicals. EPA is working to address these chemicals using our PFAS Strategic Roadmap, which is our plan to research, restrict, and remediate PFAS. I want to acknowledge at the outset of this conversation, like the one we're having tonight, that this is challenging work. But the issue we're here to talk about, while it can be complex, and as many of you know, PFAS has already impacted potentially you, your family, your community, and you're here because you're concerned that PFAS may impact you in the future. One of the themes you'll hear today is the importance of working across the EPA and also with our partners in other federal agencies, tribal nations, with states, and with the public to tackle this significant challenge. And a critical area for us to focus on is to empower meaningful action on behalf of all people who are impacted by these chemicals, regardless of their zip code or the color of their skin. The core group at EPA working on PFAS is known as our EPA Council on PFAS, or our PFAS Council. So in a few minutes, I'll be turning to my colleague, Jennifer McLean, who is a member of EPA's PFAS Council, to share some opening thoughts with all of us. The feedback you provide today will help us better understand what you, your family, and your community are experiencing in order to keep us focused on protecting human health and the environment and addressing PFAS contamination. And your feedback will also help us better communicate about the risks of PFAS, including information about what PFAS are, how they are used, and how they can impact our health. You'll soon hear from my colleagues about the actions EPA has taken and plans to take, and we welcome your feedback on these actions or on additional actions that you would like us to consider. As I've said, we are doing this work in close coordination with our federal, tribal, state, and local partners. So we'd welcome feedback on ways we can work more effectively with these partners. Finally, one priority area for us at EPA is to better understand how PFAS contamination may disproportionately impact communities already overburdened by environmental hazards and contamination, and what actions EPA or its partners can take to address this. In our listening session later this evening, my EPA colleagues and I are interested to hear from all of you about how PFAS has impacted you, your family, and your community. With that, I'll turn it to Jennifer McLean.
Thank you, Casey. Good evening. I'm Jennifer McLean, and my job at EPA is the Director of the Office of Groundwater and Drinking Water in EPA's Office of Water. My colleagues and I in the Drinking Water Office oversee the implementation of the Safe Drinking Water Act, which helps protect America's drinking water. In my office, we set national health-based drinking water standards, and we work together with states, tribes, and drinking water systems to ensure that these standards are met. It's especially exciting for me to be with you tonight because, as you may know, EPA yesterday released a proposed regulation to establish legally enforceable levels for 6 PFAS that are known to occur in drinking water. EPA is using the most recent science as the foundation for this proposed rule, and we're building on existing state efforts to limit PFAS to provide a nationwide health protective level for these 6 PFAS in drinking water. My office also oversees important drinking water funding programs, including the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund and a grant program for small and disadvantaged communities, both of which received historic levels of funding to address PFAS and other emerging contaminants under the bipartisan infrastructure law. You'll hear more about these funding programs from my Region 10 colleagues in a few minutes. An additional responsibility that I have in my job, and the reason I'm here with you today, is that I serve on the group that Casey just mentioned, which is EPA's PFAS Council. As Casey described, addressing PFAS issues is a top priority for EPA and for our administrator, Michael Regan. As you'll learn more about in a moment, one of Administrator Regan's first actions when he joined EPA in 2021 was to create EPA's PFAS Council. In creating the council, Administrator Regan asked us to develop an ambitious plan of action to advance science and research, to restrict these dangerous chemicals from getting into the environment, and to remediate the problem in communities across the country. The plan that we developed is known as the PFAS Strategic Roadmap. It is our whole of agency approach to addressing PFAS, and you'll hear more about the roadmap in a few minutes. The roadmap sets timelines by which EPA plans to take specific actions across each of our major program areas, not only within the Office of Water, where I work, but in other areas as well. And in addition to these program-specific priority actions, we also included a set of actions for ourselves that cut across all of our programs. And one of those critical areas is engaging directly with communities. And one of the reasons that we're having this session today is because we received a recommendation from our EPA's National Environmental Justice Advisory Council that we engage with communities in each EPA region. In my job at EPA's headquarters, I'm committed and passionate about moving EPA's work forward on PFAS. And tonight, it's very important to me that I'm here with you and my colleagues in Region 10 so that I can have the opportunity to hear firsthand about your experiences with PFAS contamination. By listening to all of you, I can have a better sense of how we can make the greatest impact through the work that we do at EPA. So thank you for being with us here today. I look forward to hearing from you during our listening session. And I am going to turn it now over to Region 10's lead on PFAS, Michael Zerlog, to walk through EPA's PFAS Strategic Roadmap. Michael?
Thank you, Jennifer. Hello, everyone. As Jennifer indicated, my name is Michael Zerlog, and I'm the director for Region 10's Laboratory Services and Applied Science Division. My division includes a full-service laboratory located in Manchester, Washington, that has a capability to analyze for PFAS, and includes staff in Seattle, Washington, that provides technical and scientific support to other divisions within the region. An additional responsibility of mine is to serve as our point of contact for Region 10 on PFAS topics, and to work closely with the PFAS Council to ensure that we are coordinating effectively. I also convene a Region 10 PFAS state and federal bi-monthly working group where we share updates and listen to presentations on PFAS related topics. Tonight, I will share some information about the work EPA has done under the PFAS Strategic Roadmap, highlight actions we are planning for the future, and listen as you all share your experiences with PFAS to help inform our work in Region 10 and across the country. As Jennifer shared earlier, in April 2021, EPA Administrator Michael Regan established the EPA Council on PFAS and charged it to develop a bold, strategic, whole of EPA approach to protect public health and the environment from the impacts of PFAS. The council, comprised of senior technical and policy leaders from across EPA program offices and regional offices, is co-chaired by EPA's Assistant Administrator for Water, Radhika Fox, and EPA's Regional Administrator for Region 1, which is our New England region, David Cash. The council met Administrator Regan's call through the PFAS Strategic Roadmap released in October 2021. And that roadmap does several things. It includes timelines for concrete actions from 2021 to 2024. It fills a critical gap in federal leadership, setting a basic floor of federal protection across the country. It supports states' ongoing efforts to tackle PFAS by building critical science, methods, tools, and technologies. And it builds on EPA's commitment to restore scientific integrity by making science the foundation of our work. I'll return to the specific commitments in our PFAS roadmap in a few minutes. Next slide, please. So before I share more about EPA's specific PFAS roadmap, I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or I will refer to them as PFAS, and why we are concerned. PFAS captures a large group of synthetic chemicals, those that are made by humans, that consist of chains of carbon atoms surrounded by fluorine atoms. As Casey mentioned, there are thousands of different PFAS with a variety of chemical structures. Some of these chemicals have been more widely used and studied than others. As example, this slide shows the chemical structure of two of the most widely used and studied chemicals in the PFAS group, known as PFOA and PFOS. PFAS has been used in homes, businesses, and industries since the 1940s. They have been and are used by many industries and found in many consumer products due to their useful properties, including stain and water resistance, and their beneficial role in firefighting foam used to extinguish fuel fires. Due to their widespread use, PFAS have often been found in soil, water, fish, and air across the country and around the world. Surveys conducted by the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention show that most people in the United States have been exposed to PFAS, including measurable levels of certain PFAS in human blood. Most known exposures to PFAS are relatively low, but some can be high, particularly when people are exposed to a concentrated source over long periods of time. PFAS are a concern to human health due to their known or suspected toxicity. Their health effects are better known for some PFAS, such as PFOA and PFOS, but much less well known for others. I'll describe a bit later some of the work EPA is doing to improve our scientific understanding. Finally, scientific research has shown that PFAS can resist decomposition in the environment and in the human body due to their unique properties. Next slide, please. The life cycle diagram on the left shows some of the ways in which PFAS are used and can enter the environment. I know some of the text is very small, but the picture helps to illustrate a few major ways PFAS can enter the environment and potentially impact human health. These ways include discharges of PFAS pollution from manufacturing facilities, discharges of PFAS containing firefighting foam, PFAS entering wastewater treatment facilities from upstream sources, and PFAS applied to agricultural fields as a component of biosolids. And biosolids are those solid organic matter left over from the wastewater treatment process. Through these significant and diverse pathways, PFAS contamination presents a unique challenge. EPA's approach toward PFAS takes this uniqueness into account and is centered around the following principles. First, consider the life cycle of PFAS, including their unique properties, the ubiquity of their uses, and the multiple pathways for exposure. Second, get upstream of the problem. EPA is bringing deeper focus to preventing PFAS from entering the environment in the first place, a foundational step to reducing the exposure and potential risks of the future PFAS contamination. Third, hold polluters accountable for their actions and for the PFAS remediation efforts. Fourth, ensure science-based decision-making. EPA is investing in scientific research to fill gaps in understanding of PFAS. And fifth, prioritize protection of disadvantaged communities. When taking action on PFAS, EPA is ensuring that disadvantaged communities have equitable access to solutions. And it's this principle of protecting communities is a critical reason why we're here tonight. Next slide, please. The risks posed by PFAS demand that EPA attack the PFAS problem on multiple fronts at the same time. The actions described in our strategic roadmap each represent important and meaningful steps to safeguard communities from PFAS contamination. And we believe these actions will build upon one another and lead to a more enduring and protective solutions. EPA's integrated approach to PFAS is focused on three goals. First, research. EPA is investing in research, development, and innovation to increase understandings of PFAS exposure and toxicities, human health and ecological effects, and actions we can take that incorporate the best available science. Second is to restrict. EPA is pursuing a comprehensive approach to proactively prevent PFAS from entering air, land, and water at levels that can adversely impact human health and the environment. And third, remediate. EPA is broadening and accelerating the cleanup of PFAS contamination. Next slide, please. In the PFAS roadmap, EPA is committed to issuing a public report on its PFAS progress each year. In November 2022, EPA released its first one-year progress report summarizing the critical actions that we've taken. Since the roadmap release back in October of 2021, EPA has taken the following actions, which I'll talk about in greater detail later in the presentation. We've proposed to designate 2 PFAS as hazardous substances under CERCLA, which is the Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act, or more commonly known as Superfund. We've released drinking water health advisories for 4 PFAS. We've laid the foundation for enhancing data on PFAS. We began distributing $10 billion in funding to address emerging contaminants under the bipartisan infrastructure law. We've expanded the scientific understanding of PFAS and translated this science into EPA's efforts. We've proactively used enforcement tools to better identify and address PFAS releases. And we've released a set of PFAS analytic tools to publicly share data on PFAS in communities. And finally, we've engaged with federal partners and the public. EPA's PFAS work was informed by public webinars, stakeholder meetings, congressional testimony, and engagement with EPA's federal advisories committees. EPA is also coordinating with its federal agency partners in the Biden-Harris administration to harness the collective knowledge, experience, and capacity of the federal government to address PFAS. In addition to highlighting the actions EPA has taken on our one-year progress report, also identified a series of upcoming priority actions for 2023, such as proposing a national drinking water standard, And as Jennifer mentioned, we just announced that yesterday on the 14th. Taking final action on the proposed CERCLA designation for PFOA and PFOS, continuing to improve chemical data and safety, restricting upstream PFAS discharges to waterways, addressing PFAS in biosolids, and engaging with communities like we're doing here tonight. I will cover each of these upcoming actions in a few moments. Next slide, please. So over the next few slides, I will cover some program-specific commitments from various offices here at EPA. As I highlighted earlier, science and research are the foundation of EPA's work on PFAS. EPA is working to improve the scientific understanding of PFAS in three primary areas. First, we are working to develop and validate methods to detect and measure PFAS in the environment. Second, we are working to advance the science to assess human health and environmental risks from PFAS. Our scientists are developing human health toxicity assessments for additional PFAS, compiling and summarizing available and relevant scientific information, identifying PFAS sources, the ways PFAS move in the environment, and the pathways by which people can be exposed to PFAS, and characterizing how PFAS exposure may contribute to cumulative impacts on communities. And third, we are working to evaluate and develop technologies for reducing PFAS in the environment. This work will inform decisions on drinking water and wastewater treatment, contaminated site cleanup and remediation, air emissions controls, and end-of-life materials management. Next slide, please. The next area I'll cover is our work to ensure chemical safety. EPA's Office of Chemical Safety and Pollution Prevention is working on many actions to restrict PFAS. And most of these actions fall under two laws: the Toxic Substance Control Act, or you may have heard it as TSCA, and the Toxic Release Inventory Program, which you might know as the TRI program. First of all, EPA is working to deepen our understanding of PFAS categories through the National PFAS Testing Strategy, which EPA released in October 2021. The testing strategy is a major step towards the game-changing goal of breaking PFAS into distinct categories to direct research, amplify regulatory action, and accelerate technology and policy solutions to restrict and remediate PFAS. Second, EPA is working under the TSCA authorities to strengthen EPA oversight on both new and existing PFAS. EPA is working to ensure a robust review process for new PFAS to ensure that chemicals are safe before they enter commerce. And we're working to review existing PFAS under TSCA to ensure that they are being used in ways that do not present concerns and to prevent production of legacy PFAS or their use in new ways. For example, in late January, EPA proposed a rule that would ensure that any discontinued use of certain PFAS cannot re-enter the marketplace without EPA review. Third, EPA is collecting data and improving on how PFAS are used and released. Under TSCA, we are working on a final rule to better characterize the source and quantities of manufactured PFAS in the United States. This final rule would collect significant new information on chemical quantities, byproducts, worker exposures, and disposal methods. And under the Toxic Release Inventory, or TRI, we are working to enhance PFAS reporting by proposing a rule to remove exemptions and exclusions from reporting. Last December, EPA released a proposed rule to enhance TRI PFAS reporting. If finalized, this rule would enhance the data available to the public so EPA and other federal, tribal nation, state, and local agencies can use these data to help best protect health and the environment. And fourth, EPA is working to reduce the presence of PFAS in products purchased by the federal government. In December 2021, President Biden signed an executive order that reestablishes the federal government as a leader in sustainability. A critical element of the executive order is to promote sustainable federal purchasing, which includes prioritizing the purchase of products without added PFAS. EPA is taking a leadership role in this work. Next slide, please. Next, we'll cover our Office of Water, where we are taking an extensive set of actions to restrict PFAS through EPA's programs to protect drinking water, our lakes, rivers, and streams. First, let's take a look at drinking water. As Jennifer mentioned earlier, on March 14th, EPA took a key step to protect human health by proposing the first ever national drinking water standard for 6 PFAS, fulfilling a foundational commitment in the PFAS Strategic Roadmap. Through this proposed rule, EPA is taking a major step to protect human health from PFAS pollution, leveraging the latest science and complementing state efforts to limit PFAS by proposing to establish legally enforceable levels for 6 PFAS known to occur in drinking water. The rule is currently open for public comment, and you can learn more about the proposed rule and how to access the formal public comment docket on our website at www.epa.gov/PFAS. EPA is also working to improve drinking water data through monitoring, toxicity assessments, and health advisories. EPA is currently taking important steps to monitor drinking water in communities across the country through our 5th Unregulated Contaminant Monitoring Rule, or UCMR 5. This program is testing for 29 PFAS chemicals from 2023 to 2025 in thousands of drinking water systems nationwide. You may remember that earlier round of EPA monitoring from 2013 to 2015 helped us discover PFAS contamination and led to significant state and local actions to safeguard our drinking water. With our latest rule, we are taking it a step further. We'll be testing nearly 5 times more PFAS at significantly more water systems and using methods that can detect PFAS at much lower levels. These new data will be critical in improving our understanding of how communities, including low-income communities and communities of color, may be exposed to PFAS in their drinking water. As I mentioned earlier, in June 2022, EPA released 4 health advisories. There were interim health advisories for PFOA and PFOS, and final health advisories for PFBS and for Gen X chemicals. Under the Clean Water Act, EPA is working to develop national technology-based discharge limits for industries that use PFAS through our Effluent Limitation Guidelines program. In January 2023, EPA released its final Effluent Limitation Guidelines Plan 1.5, which outlines key steps toward addressing PFAS discharges across a range of industrial categories. Also under the Clean Water Act, we are working to address PFAS in permitting and through analytical methods, water quality criteria, and fish advisories. We are working to leverage the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, or NPDS, wastewater permitting program to improve monitoring and to reduce PFAS discharges to waterways. In December 2022, EPA released new guidance to states describing how to leverage permits and pre-treatment programs to increase monitoring, including at known or suspected discharges of PFAS. This guidance will enable states to take appropriate steps to restrict PFAS at their source, collect important data on PFAS discharges, and enable communities to work closely with their state permitting authorities to take action where discharges may occur. We're also working on improved analytical methods to measure more PFAS in more places. In April 22, EPA released draft aquatic life criteria for public comment for PFOA and PFOS, which reflect the latest peer-reviewed scientific knowledge regarding the effects of these chemicals on freshwater aquatic organisms. We are working to enhance data availability on PFAS in fish tissue, to help states and tribal nations to set PFAS fish advisories. And finally, as I referenced earlier, we are working to evaluate the risks of PFAS in biosolids. We'll be finalizing a risk assessment for PFOA and PFAS that will serve as a basis for determining whether regulation of these two chemicals in biosolids is appropriate. Next slide, please. This slide covers two of our program offices, our Office of Land and Emergency Management, which houses EPA's cleanup programs, and our Office of Air and Radiation, where our team of experts work to address air pollution. First, we'll talk about a specific action that I highlighted earlier under CERCLA, which is the Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act, or more commonly known as Superfund. In September 22, EPA published a proposed rule to designate PFOA and PFOS as hazardous substances under CERCLA or Superfund. If finalized, this rule would require facilities across the country to report PFOA and PFOS releases that meet or exceed the reportable quantities for these substances. It would also enhance the ability of federal, tribal nations, state, and local authorities to obtain information regarding the location and extent of releases. It would enhance the ability of EPA and other agencies to respond to release or threats of releases of PFOA and PFOS, and would help establish national consistency in the evaluation of cleanup of PFOA and PFOS and encourage better waste management practices. As identified in the roadmap, EPA intends to take final action on the proposed rule in 2023, and we will continue to work closely with stakeholders to better understand equity concerns. As an additional step, EPA anticipates issuing an advance notice of proposed rulemaking in the coming months to seek public comment on designating other PFAS chemicals as CERCLA hazardous substances. Next, under RCRA, or the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, EPA plans to propose two regulations in 2023. First, EPA plans to develop a proposed rule to add specific PFAS to the list of hazardous constituents, which would mean that these PFAS are subject to RCRA corrective action requirements. Second, EPA plans to clarify that emerging contaminants such as PFAS can be cleaned up through the RCRA corrective action process. The third item on this slide highlights EPA's commitment to take significant steps toward updating our research and guidance on PFAS destruction and disposal. EPA published interim guidance in December of 2020, and in that document, we highlighted significant uncertainties about the effectiveness of some PFAS destruction and disposal technologies. We have a deadline to update the guidance by December 2023. Finally, our Office of Air and Radiation is also taking steps toward restricting PFAS by building the technical foundation for potential Clean Air Act regulation. We are working to identify sources, to develop monitoring approaches and information on mitigation technologies, and to increase our understanding of the fate and transport of PFAS air emissions. This work will support future decisions on whether to designate PFAS as hazardous air pollutants under the Clean Air Act. Next slide, please. So no conversation about PFAS is complete without highlighting the transformational investments being made in America's water infrastructure through the bipartisan infrastructure law, or bill, that was signed by President Biden in November of 2021. Jennifer mentioned this funding earlier, and I'd like to share some additional details. The bill provides the single largest investment in clean water that the federal government has ever made. The bill would build on the research, restrictions, and remediation called for in the PFAS Roadmap by providing $10 billion for communities impacted by PFAS and other emerging contaminants. The bill builds on these three existing water finance programs, but focuses them specifically on PFAS and emerging contaminants. And it provides all $10 billion of these funds without a requirement for state matching funds. And all funds are either provided as grants or principal forgiveness loans. Of the $10 billion, $4 billion will flow through the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. $1 billion will flow through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. And $5 billion will be provided grants to address emerging contaminants in small and disadvantaged communities. In February of 2023, EPA announced the availability of $2 billion from this program to address emerging contaminants, including PFAS, in drinking water across the country. These funds will be allocated to states and territories and will promote access to safe and clean water in rural, small, and disadvantaged communities while supporting local economies. EPA is committed to maximizing the impact of these funds in addressing urgent water challenges facing communities. And we are thrilled that these funds will enable communities to invest in PFAS treatment solutions, while EPA continues to take action to research, restrict, and remediate PFAS consistent with our PFAS Strategic Roadmap. I've covered a lot of information tonight in this presentation. I would encourage you to visit our website, epa.gov/PFAS. There you can find all this information and much more on what actions EPA has taken and plans to take on PFAS. The website is regularly updated and will have the latest information to new rulemakings and other actions. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to our moderator, Laura, to talk more about the next part of our session, where you'll hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael, for all of that. In a few moments, we look forward to providing an opportunity for those of you who are interested to share your feedback with us. But before we do, I first wanted to provide you with some background. First of all, I just want to emphasize that the feedback you share with us tonight will help inform future actions EPA takes toward helping communities address PFAS contamination. One important thing to note is that the feedback you share with us will not be considered as part of the formal comment process for any specific action EPA is taking consistent with EPA's PFAS Strategic Roadmap. If you have comments on any specific action we are taking, such as a proposed regulation, you should provide those formal comments as part of the formal public comment process. And you can learn more about the actions we have taken at our website, which Grace from LRG is going to put in the chat for everyone too. That's been referenced many times tonight, and you've probably visited, but it is www.epa.gov/PFAS. And one other question you may have is what EPA plans to do with the feedback you share with us tonight. First of all, we do not plan to individually respond to the feedback we receive. However, we do plan to take back everything we hear from you tonight, as well as the feedback we gather at the other regional listening sessions that we are holding to inform EPA's future work on PFAS. Now, I would like to turn it back over to Grace at LRG to share some additional details about how our listening session will work this evening. Thank you, Grace.
Thank you, Laura. We will now be opening the session up for public feedback. First, we'll hear from those individuals who signed up during the registration process. Before we get to those folks, a couple of tips for how to share verbal feedback. If you signed up ahead of time, you'll receive a message in Zoom and you'll need to click on that message. That will give you speaking permission. Please click on that message when you receive it in Zoom. When you have speaker permissions, we'll call out your name. At that point, you should unmute and begin speaking. You are welcome to turn your video on or keep it off. Also, just a reminder to please limit your feedback to 3 minutes. Can we go to the next slide, please? Perfect. If you have difficulty clicking on the link or speaking, please email us at info@pfascommunityengagement.org so we can help you. If we're not able to help you and you've signed up to be a speaker, know that we will likely have time at the end of the session to open it up for additional feedback. So you will likely have another chance to provide feedback later on. So before I turn it back over to Laura, I think we have sent our first message in Zoom to the first person on the list for feedback. So Kevin, you should have received a message. Looks like we have him ready. So I'll turn it back over to Laura.
Great. Thank you, Grace. And Kevin, are you ready to provide your comment or your feedback to us tonight? Not comment, feedback.
This is Kevin Kanega. Can you hear me?
Thank you, Kevin. We can.
I'm going to leave my video off. I live rural, and I think it's the best thing to do.
That sounds great.
I'm a resident of rural Benton County. I want to thank you for finally implementing stricter drinking water levels for PFAS. Seems long overdue, but it's finally here, so thank you. Landfill and incinerator leachates known to contain PFAS, as stated previously. All too often, these leachates are taken to municipal wastewater treatment plants that have zero ability to remove PFAS or any other toxic chemicals. After settling out the solids, the liquids are then released into our waterways while still containing PFAS. The solids, referenced as biosolids, are often used to fertilize farm fields while still containing PFAS. I see effluent limitation guidelines, Plan 15, is to be released soon. This will be restrictions on liquids dumped into our waterways. I'd like to know when is soon and how will we be notified? PFAS and biosolids were released in 2024. 2024. Why so long? 2024 does not seem like a reasonable time frame considering known PFAS issues. Thank you for allowing me this time to speak.
Thank you so much, Kevin. We really appreciate your feedback tonight. And I just want to note too, Kevin did a great job of speaking slowly for our interpreters during the feedback that was given. So it's a good thing to remind everyone. And we do have our next speaker ready to provide feedback. Ron, excuse me. Ron, are you ready to provide your feedback tonight?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
And I'll get started. I'll do my best to speak slowly. I just want to say hello. My name is Ron Wieringa, and I'm here representing Clackamas Water Environment Services and the Oregon Association of Clean Water Agencies, known as ACWA. ACWA is a private, not-for-profit professional organization of Oregon's wastewater treatment and stormwater management agencies and associated professional consulting firms, all dedicated to protecting and enhancing Oregon's water quality I appreciate the opportunity to provide our perspective on the EPA PFAS Strategic Roadmap. As receivers of PFAS pollution from businesses and homes, local clean water utilities face unique challenges in managing PFAS, but also play an essential role in reducing PFAS pollution in coordination with our state and federal partners. We applaud EPA's emphasis on conducting research and filling data gaps on PFAS toxicity, risk, exposures, and fate and transport in the environment. Aqua recommends that EPA accelerate this scientific research because in the absence of comprehensive federal PFAS data, states may develop, and in some cases have already developed, regulatory action levels that vary greatly and lack robust scientific basis. I'll note that Aqua was awarded a Columbia River Basin Restoration Grant by EPA Region 10 to help fill PFAS data gaps and promote upstream pollution prevention actions. And we are very appreciative of EPA's assistance in helping advance our research and reduction goals. In addition to the focus on scientific research, Aqua advocates that EPA elevates source reduction as a top priority ahead of in-stream water quality standards and end-of-pipe pollution discharge limits. Limiting the number of PFAS and products entering the marketplace through robust implementation of TSCA is the most effective way to reduce discharges of PFAS to the environment. Aqua also recommends that prior to developing in-stream water quality criteria, EPA finalize other regulatory initiatives, including those related to toxicity values, new analytical methods, drinking water standards, and effluent limitation guidelines for industries. We believe that those other regulations will provide for a stronger foundation for developing stream water quality criteria down the road. And lastly, regarding potential numeric effluent limits for public wastewater facilities, even if a utility eliminates all industrial PFAS sources, the concentrations from domestic sources alone may still exceed limits if current drinking water screening levels and the newly proposed MCLs provide an indication of how stringent those limits could be. Installing unproven and costly PFAS treatment technologies at public wastewater facilities is unlikely to be feasible or affordable for most communities. Once again, thank you for the opportunity to provide feedback on EPA's roadmap.
Thank you very much, Ron, for that feedback. We really appreciate it. And we have our next speaker queued up, ready to provide feedback. Laura Petso, are you able to?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, great. Okay, go for it. Thank you.
My comments are my own and do not represent any government or other organization that I may be associated with. First ask for you tonight is that you not delay finalizing the proposed PFAS limits for drinking. My second ask is that as the comments come in about how much those new standards will cost, please recognize that those costs are not a reason to delay the standards. What they are is a clear illustration of why we need to change our ways before other water systems face those same costs. My next ask is that you stop the cycle of don't test, don't tell. Biosolids, food, air, soil, stormwater, shampoo, fabric softener, dish soap, and whatever are the results so that we can move ahead with other PFAS mitigation and remediation. I have another ask for tonight. Please stop recycling PFAS contamination. Perhaps those that are so excited about LID stormwater techniques are not using those for drinking water aquifers. Perhaps ideas about water reuse, irrigating crops with sewage effluent, aquifer recharge, land application of biosolids, and other ideas need careful consideration rather than blind acceptance. Finally, I ask that you please consider withdrawing UIC well primacy from the State of Washington Department of Ecology. Current practices and policies do not change. Perhaps when primacy was granted to Washington in the 19th, codes and administrative practices protect groundwater. But now the codes and manuals are filled with exceptions, and our administrative practices and evaluation of PFAS or endangerment. This situation represents a I thank you for the opportunity to comment and wish you luck.
Thank you very much, Laura. We really appreciate your feedback. Thank you. I know as we're queuing up for our next piece of feedback tonight, again, just reminding everyone to speak a bit slower. I know that we have the 3-minute limit on the screen, but it's okay to speak a little bit slower tonight when you're providing your feedback for our interpreters too. You all are doing amazing. Thank you. And you also, if you are in the virtual room and not on the phone, you definitely do not have to show your video. You can if you want, but totally do not have to. We have our next speaker to provide feedback tonight ready. Jay, can you hear us okay? We can't hear you just yet.
How about now?
We got you.
All
Sounds
right.
great. Thank you, Jay. Go for it.
That's a user error problem on my end. So,
No worries.
but thank you for the opportunity to offer comments, and I want to, thank EPA for the work you're doing. I know the work you do is in our interests and all of our customers' interests. By the way, I'm with the Sammamish Plateau Water and Sewer District in the state of Washington. We've been dealing with PFAS since 2016. And one of the primary elements of our approach has been waiting for the regulatory environment to evolve. It sure seems like we're almost there with the release of the proposed MCLs yesterday. So, we now have a direction. We can respond. But, one of the things I heard was that part of the EPA approach is to hold polluters accountable. And I just want to footnote that none of us as water utilities are the polluters. We are the unfortunate recipients of the challenges of PFAS that we found in our previously pristine groundwater resources. And we need help. The funding is critical. Our customers didn't cause this problem, but almost by default, they're having to remediate it to have safe drinking water. The initial round of federal funding provided to the state of Washington to be allocated through the state revolving fund, unfortunately, was insufficient to meet the needs of everybody. In spite of us having treatment at 90% design, we were unfortunately not funded. Additionally, we were the beneficiary of a congressionally directed appropriation through Representative Schreier's office. Our total project cost estimate for initial treatment is $20 million. We were awarded $1.585 million. We've been trying to access that money since summer. We simply can't get to it. And I would, just suggest if it's possible for EPA to provide a facilitative approach to funding, help us, because we are not experts on the CFR. It's a different language for us in the industry. And we really do want to execute projects to protect our customers. And if there's a way to, both facilitate and at the end of the day, work with us and work with our other federal officials to increase funding, it would sure help us all resolve the issues. So thank you. And again, thanks for the work you guys are doing.
Thank you so much, Jay. A lot of hearts and thumbs up to that piece of feedback. So thank you for providing that this evening. And we have our next speaker to provide feedback queued up. Pat, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead and provide your feedback. Thank you so much.
Well, I want to say thank you. I want to express my sincere appreciation for the work that you folks are doing and those that are doing the work behind the scenes. I, as a fellow regulator, truly appreciate the efforts you folks are putting in and recognize the work that you are doing. I also want to express appreciation for letting the individuals speak on these things. Specifically, the research, the funding opportunities, and these public outreach sessions, I feel are vitally important. The more education that we can get on these topics, provide to the public, the better we can address these issues. So essentially, I want to say thank you, and I would applaud further efforts in more of these more frequently, and yeah, as wide as we can reach in those. So again, thank you.
Thank you so much, Pat. Really appreciate that feedback. Wonderful feedback from everyone this evening. Thank you. We just really, really appreciate it. This is wonderful. We have our next speaker ready to provide feedback. Brandy, are you able to hear us? Can't hear you just yet. Take your time. No pressure. Still want to try to say something else. We're not hearing you just yet. You might be having a few audio issues. I'm sorry, Brandy, we're having trouble hearing you still. We'll give just a little more time. Take your time. Sometimes the virtual environment can be, computers can go haywire. So take your time. Okay, I think Brandy may be back later, but for now, I think we've lost Brandy for the moment, but maybe later. So we'll be going on to our next speaker to provide feedback this evening. John Hancock, are you able to hear us?
I'm here. Thank you.
John.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just great. Thank you.
I live in the country near Spokane in Washington. My rural neighborhood is 10 and 20 acre wooded parcels on winding Deep Creek near Spokane. We all drink from private wells for which Washington ecology gives us responsibility. It's a forest paradise on the east edge of the Evergreen State. Not far to the west, in the middle of Washington, there's a desert. And in the middle of the desert, there's still a place called Hanford. In 1942, this new atom bomb plant was not hard to keep secret because it was a remote, desolate, sparsely populated place. Desperation to win the war justified a secret adventurism and improvisation of politics and science with unlimited money. The harms to Hanford's neighbors are far from over, even after 60 years, partly because of the partnership dysfunctions among federal, state, and local officials. We desperately need a new and constructive model of interagency rapid rescue in my neighborhood, where DoD is the primary source of our PFOA. Like the Hanford site, visitors westbound from the Rocky Mountains in the 1940s wouldn't have seen much on our West Plains prairie. It was ideal for a post-war military air presence on the West Coast, except for the people who lived nearby. At Fairchild Air Force Base, AFFF was used from the 1970s until around 2012. Records reveal that 4 nearby plane crashes received an estimated 125 gallons of foam each, plus weekly training for at least 30 years. On the base, there's still a well that tests at 187,000 parts per trillion. Yes, you heard that right, 187,000 parts per trillion. Compare that with the new MCLs. In 2018, the CDC sponsored a national blood study of 8 communities near PFOA contamination sites. We're the worst by far. Last November, the Texas-based Air Force Engineering Corps called Fairchild Air Force Base the most harmful spill in the country because of the number of private well owners right outside the fence. My neighborhood is in that plume though we're 4 or 5 miles away. My own well is clean, but across the road, levels range from 30 to 150 parts per trillion. The Air Force has installed whole house GAC filters at a half dozen homes, with more in the queue, at $50,000 each. But these are drinking water filters only, not allowed for flowers, pets, animals, fruit trees, or vegetables. This is an agricultural neighborhood. What to do? Even the Air Force admits that these are forever chemicals. AFFF has been a slow-moving train wreck since the 1970s, unlike East Palestine. If the squeaky wheel on that train had been greased, that wreck might have been prevented. It's far too late to prevent our PFOA train wreck, so we need the best possible cleanup plan right now. There's no half-life of PFOA. It's not going away. It's ironic that during this 50th anniversary celebration of the Clean Water Act, we have a dangerous mess, and the facts get worse the closer we look. Get busy, fast, please, on concrete solutions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. Getting a lot of hearts and clapping emojis for that feedback. We really appreciate that. All of this is such thoughtful feedback, and it really is incredibly helpful to us. Thank you so much. And while we're waiting for our next speaker to queue up, I know we have a few other people who did sign up in advance to give feedback. I just want to mention that there will be opportunities for everyone else, even if you did not previously register to provide feedback tonight. We will have time for you to provide feedback too. So, and if you do, while you're listening to all of this great feedback, you want to check out that link that was put in the chat earlier to the EPA PFAS Strategic Roadmap to refresh, feel free. I think we do have our next speaker queued up for feedback. Brandy, are you able to hear us now?
Yes, can you hear me?
Great, we can hear you great. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience, everybody. My name is Brandy Hyatt. I live in Yakima, Washington, and my home and my community have been impacted by PFAS chemicals flowing off of the Yakima Training Center Army installation. So the conflict that we are coming up against is that we're private well owners, and there's just no support for us. And we're left to the whim of the CERCLA process right now, which when you look at it, could be a 30-year plan. Many homes that tested above 70 parts per trillion, well, all of them have been tested, that have been tested by the Army, are given bottled water, but there's this large group of homes that have tested below 70, and the Army has told them that they're good to go. So we have people that are being told it's safe to drink poison. We have people that are only living on bottled water and don't have safe access to showers or agriculture or to water their livestock. So we really need, as private homeowners, where do we get access to that funding? Where do we get assistance? We're not a city water where, you know, there's more access. I loved hearing earlier that people were talking about, you know, please don't slow this process down. We are desperate for help out here. And we're desperate for that funding, especially as private well owners. So please consider us as the underserved community that is lacking access. And thank you so much for hearing us and taking action with what you hear.
Thank you so much, Brandy. Lots of positive response and an emotion coming out from that feedback too. We really appreciate you. Thank you for sharing that. We do have our next speaker ready for feedback. JR, are you able to
Yes,
hear us?
hi.
Okay, great.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go
Awesome.
ahead. Thank you.
So I'm a resident in rural Southern Oregon. And I just want to say thank you to you all for putting this on, for the opportunity to comment, for the work that you do, and for the other commenters or folks giving feedback. And the first thing that strikes me listening to this is, materials development for outreach. I don't know what products have PFAS in them. I don't know when I go to the store. I mean, I would love a labeling initiative, with partnership with the USDA or whoever else, that some other agencies to do that. A map of hotspots, PFAS hotspots. The last commenter and the last two actually talked about some of these areas. I think that would be really helpful for the public to see. So that's two of those things. Transportation. The two commenters ago mentioned, the Ohio rec partnering with DOT on how we handle concentrated, moving chemicals of concentrated PFAS around the country. I would like to see and hear about health impacts around those clusters. Because I honestly, I think the biggest thing we could do would probably be to halt the production of consumer and commercial products that are not national security interest requirement products, so that the science, the toxicology can catch up. I think that's just a problem that we have to deal with. But I do think that I would urge you to work with your executive branch allies on that. And I would like to see here in Region 10, I am interested in air emissions of PFAS. Obviously, water is a huge problem, but we do have, there's waste incineration, there's other things, but there's also clusters. Semiconductor manufacturing is a huge industry. They have exemptions from the SNR. There's other reasons. They just continue to be able to use these chemicals. We know they have elevated levels in their water and wastewater effluents, but there is no information about their air emissions. And so I would just urge us to work with those partnerships. And then finally, I guess I would urge you to work with DOJ counterparts in trying to get money from the perpetrators of, the manufacturers of these chemicals, to help these local water agencies, municipalities, other folks get the money. We got $1 billion from Volkswagen cheating emissions. I feel like we could do better here. And so again, I just want to thank you all for your work, and thank you for the opportunity to provide feedback.
Thank you so much, JR. That was also a lot of amazingly thoughtful and detailed feedback that is so helpful, and lots of good response to all of the people providing feedback this evening. Thank you all so much. We have come to the time where everyone who signed up to provide feedback that we have in this virtual space or on the phone has provided that feedback. And so we still have some time left. So we want to open it up to anyone else who wants to give feedback on any of the issues that we've discussed today. So Grace, I'm going to hand it over to you to just go over how people can do that.
Sure. Thank you, Laura. So thank you all who signed up to provide feedback. As Laura mentioned, we do have some time left, so we'll go ahead and open it up. The process is just a little bit different for those who are giving feedback now versus if you signed up previously. So you'll have to utilize the raised hand button, which you can find that at the bottom of the Zoom screen in reactions. Click raise hand, and then please keep your hand raised until you've had an opportunity to give your feedback. You still will have to accept or click the message in Zoom. What we're going to do is we go through the list of who has their hand raised, select someone, and then we send you that message in Zoom to give you speaking ability. So you still will have to accept that pop-up. Unmute when your name or the first three numbers of your phone number is called. You may share your webcam video if you'd like or not. And then if you are joining via phone, callers, you should press *9 on the phone to share a comment. Please unmute and begin speaking when you hear. We'll say the first few digits of your telephone number. And if you have any trouble with that, you can email us at info@pfascommunityengagement.org and we can help you troubleshoot. So we'll see if we get some hands raised, and I will turn it back over to the rest of the team.
Thank you, Grace. And thank you all who are still with us this evening. We still have quite a few people on, so we really appreciate all of you listening to all of the content and then listening to everyone providing feedback. It's just really, really, truly helpful to us. Thank you so very much. And we do have someone queued up to provide additional feedback this evening. Whitney, are you able to hear us?
Yes, thank you. My name is Whitney Rapp, and I'm speaking as a resident of Gustavus, Alaska, which has multiple point sources from aqueous firefighting foam, also known as AFFF. We are a small rural community of about 600 residents organized as a third-class city, which is not contained in a borough or larger government entity except the state level. We have very shallow, such as 10 to 20 foot groundwater for most wells with no underlying confined aquifer, and now have a significant number of wells contaminated with no municipal water alternatives. Wells with higher concentrations are seeing alternative water or filtration provided by the state of Alaska, but we still have AFFF in the community, have contaminated soils stockpiled, and have not made progress in restricting the down gradient movement of the plume. How can small communities with volunteer staff stop the sources of PFAS and abate the plume's flow? Our community needs help with municipal water and wastewater treatment. We need to reduce or eliminate new PFAS emissions, and we need to mitigate the plumes migrating through the community. There are wonderful people in the state of Alaska helping on this topic, but overall, the state has taken steps backwards in protecting our citizens. Federal leadership is needed to standardize levels and resolutions. Small communities need advocacy to be heard and resolve our challenges, but I also caution putting liability to our municipal and state entities who are using AFFF as required for incident response and training in a time when we were unaware of our situation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Whitney. That was, again, amazing feedback and very, very helpful. Thank you. I know some of the feedback too that you're providing may be very emotional or painful, and we really appreciate that you're sharing that with us too, because that's we really appreciate it. So I know that's sensitive. We have another speaker in the queue to provide feedback this evening, and that is Milo. Milo, are you able to hear us?
Yes. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you for having this webinar. I was hoping to learn, let me see, I'm calling in from Vancouver, Washington, and I get my water from a municipal water source. And I didn't hear in the information shared today, you know, since I'm receiving water, I believe that I still get water that has the PFAS in it. And even though it's been processed, it's still in my drinking water. And I was also hoping to learn a little more, you know, as to, is there a way to filter it out? How is it going? And it sounds like almost as if you don't even know what the health impacts may be. And so I'm trying to learn, you know, what are the health impacts and what can I do to mitigate my exposure to this this the PFAS chemicals. And that's really all I have today is, I'm more inclined to or be interested in the, the application of prevention and avoiding contamination. So that's, I don't know if we're able to do that or not. I assume that will probably come up in future webinars or something. I don't know. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much for providing that feedback, Milo. We again truly appreciate it. And we're gonna just, again, you probably were on for this, and some of you may have joined after we put EPA's PFAS website in the chat. We're gonna go ahead and put that in again for everyone, just because the information there is some good information on there. Even though tonight, we're just taking input and feedback and not answering directly questions, but what you raised, Milo, is incredibly important feedback and questions. So we encourage you to check out our website for now, but thank you. And we do have our next speaker queued up to provide feedback. It's Jill. Jill is the first part of the name. Are you able to hear us? I'm not sure.
Yes. Well, yes, we are.
More people. Okay, great. Hi.
Yeah, this is Tom Raff, and I'm Jill's husband.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
We live in the Yakima area, just below the training center here. The Army is, as Brandy stated, is servicing people who have greater than 70 parts per trillion. However, with the new EPA standard coming out as 4 parts per trillion, what is being done to encourage the military to reduce their standard as well? That's part one. And part two, we moved to this area to get out of the city and start basically a small farm. Now we've got 10 head of cattle and 18 chickens, and we're told that we can't use the cattle or the eggs or the chickens for food because of feeding the animals contaminated water. Where can we go to get those critters tested to see whether or not they're even horribly contaminated? Our water is sitting right now at about 14 parts per trillion. So we don't know where to go to get this information. And the information that has been provided as far as agricultural animals and even small crops, we hear that they're relatively safe, that the animals pass it quicker than humans do and all that stuff, but I don't see any studies to that effect. They keep making quotes, but they don't quote any studies. And that's a couple of concerns that we have.
Thank you. Those are incredibly important concerns. Thank you so much for sharing those with us this evening. Again, really helpful for us to hear all of this. Thank you. Thank you. And a lot of positive feedback to that last piece of feedback too, in the room. So thank you. And that's, again, I know some of what was just shared, very personal and very serious. So thank you for sharing that with us. Again, we do have our next speaker to provide feedback on this evening. Tyler, are you able to hear us?
Yep, I'm here.
Hi, we can hear you. Go for it.
All right, great, thank you. First off, I want to applaud the EPA on finally coming out with some proposed regulations for drinking water utilities. We've been waiting for a long time for a proposed regulation to come out. And I'd like to just kind of reiterate some information that I believe as Jay said earlier. there is not nearly enough funding available right now to support the needs of water utilities across the nation on this subject. Already in the state of Washington, there are state action levels in place of 10 parts per trillion for PFOA and 15 parts per trillion for PFOS. And there's not enough money available to even fund the needs at those levels, let alone the 4 part per trillion levels that are being proposed. So there's an unknown amount of utilities that have levels down at that 4 part per trillion level that could be just above that. And there's just an absolute need for more money there. I'd also like to say that I know with the bipartisan infrastructure law that's in place and the money that's available for disadvantaged communities, it's been making it a little bit more difficult for some of the funding to get distributed. Although there are, for those medium or larger size cities, there's plenty of disadvantaged communities within those cities. They can't access that funding because they're not designated as a disadvantaged community as a whole. So there needs to be a better way of defining disadvantaged communities and whether some of that funding can be made available to certain specific areas within some of those larger cities. One of the other questions or concerns that I have specific to this topic is, without UCMR5 data and with the fact that UCMR3 data that did sample for PFAS, the reporting limits were significantly higher with the lab methods that were in place at that point in time. For UCMR3, there's just a very unknown number of utilities that are going to be impacted by this because the people just haven't tested yet. And one of the things that I'm questioning or wondering about is how the EPA has been able to do the benefit cost analysis associated with these treatment system installations that will be required down to 4 parts per trillion without having the data of the prevalence of PFAS contamination that water utilities have throughout the nation. So I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tyler, for that feedback too. Lots of good reactions again in the chat. Thank you all. And before we move on to our next person to provide feedback, I do just want to mention there's been some discussion tonight about funding, and I just want to flag, and we're going to put this link in the chat, the link to EPA's grant website, which is www.epa.gov/grants. And this website does have information about EPA grants that are currently available, how to apply for grants, grant trainings, and more. So I know that doesn't get at everything that people are talking about, but I did just want to mention that in case anyone isn't familiar with that tool. There were some recorded trainings too as well. So thank you. And we do have our next speaker on to provide feedback this evening, Treasurer WIWSA. Are you able to hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, and I
Great.
hope you can hear me too. And
We
my
can.
name's not really Treasurer, that's just the name of this Zoom account. My name's John Lovey, and I'm with Whitby Island Water Systems Association, which is what that little acronym there stands for. And I've been involved in PFAS issues here on Whitby Island for some time. We do have a military facility here, which is causing some PFAS contamination, Naval Air Station Whitby, one of the better known PFAS sites. In the wake of the PFAS discoveries around there, which came from UCMR3, the Washington State Department of Health offered voluntary testing for PFAS to Group A water systems around the state. And the take up in Island County, which is where Whitby Island is, was very high. We've tested over 100 systems, and we found a pretty high detection rate with many hits and some more under the new MCLs than might have been there otherwise. Extrapolating out across the state, we're going to be looking at hundreds of Group A water systems, that have PFAS contamination above these new MCLs. We're going to be looking at probably thousands of Group B water systems and maybe tens of thousands of private wells. And there are many issues we could talk about, but a big one is funding. I saw the link there to the $5 billion for small and disadvantaged communities. That funding is available to states. I believe Washington State has applied for that funding. The problem is what happens next, because the pipelines really don't exist to get that funding down to Group B water systems and private wells. They do exist to get funding to Group A water systems in the form of the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. So our concern is how that money is going to get to where it needs to be. There's going to need to be perhaps some hand-holding there to build some pipelines to get that money down to private well owners and Group B water systems. A couple of other things. The waters of the state of Washington are owned by the population of the state of Washington and managed on our behalf by the Department of Ecology in trust for the rest of us. It may be time to take a look at making groundwater nationally part of waters of the United States. It's hard enough to do with surface water, I know, but that would be a useful extension, because we are going to need to look much more closely at source water protection going forward. We have a lot of places that have problems. We have a lot of other places that currently don't, and it would be good to keep them that way. We need to be a lot more careful about how we treat our source water going forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. Lots of really great feedback and reactions to your feedback in the chat, or not in the chat, in the room, the virtual space. So thank you very much. And again, thank you. We have so many people still with us. Really appreciate all of this feedback. Thank you. Please keep it coming. And we do have our next speaker this evening to provide feedback. Nicole, are you able to hear us? We can't hear you just yet, but take your time. There's no pressure. Just we'll give you a few moments to come off mute. You want to try to say something? Okay, we still can't quite hear you. And again, take your time. We'll send good Zoom vibes your way. We still can't quite. We can't hear you, but I know that our technicians are working to try to get you off mute so we can hear you. So I'll just wait for just a moment. And so Nicole, we're gonna come back to you in a moment, just because we're having a bit of trouble hearing you. So take your time, don't worry, you'll be able to provide your feedback. We do have another speaker queued up while Nicole, you're getting ready. Rick, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I do.
Hi, Rick. Great.
Actually,
we can hear you.
I am Rick's husband, Kim Brewer. And nothing has been brought up that I've heard tonight about medical issues in households and avenues as far as how to contend and deal with it. And we have started the process of having some lab work done, testing for PFAS in Rick's case. And he's had the lab work done for PFAS and also a spinal tap for looking for the same issues as far as the levels. And his lab work came back at 89, which anywhere from 2 to 20 is considered greatly exposed, and 89 is extremely exposed. And our well is at 870 parts per trillion. And I just encourage people listening, if they have health issues, contact first their family doctor, and then get referrals as soon as you can to hospital that tests, which is the University of Washington. And they probably have some in Oregon also, but there's only 2 labs that we found that will do the lab blood work in Bonnie Lake, Washington, and also in Issaquah, Washington. And my encouragement is to there's nothing they can do about what's in our systems. It's just the fact of knowing the levels and getting a baseline and start the screenings for other health concerns, liver concerns, thyroid issues, memory issues, and start the base and be prepared to deal with the facts that you receive. And it doesn't, like I said earlier, it does not take it away, but it knows what you're dealing with. And thank you from our community in Yakima. We live near the firing center, and at 870 parts per trillion, we feel like we've been drinking contaminated water, thinking it was healthy. And the military has known about this much longer than what I feel is acceptable. And what they're not doing is deplorable. And thank you for the time and for what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Rick. I know that was, again, very personal, very important feedback that we truly appreciate you sharing with us this evening. There's lots of hearts coming in the room for you, so thank you. I'm wondering if we have Nicole. Are you able to hear us, Nicole? Trying to see if we can have your feedback tonight too. No worries. No worries if you're having a little trouble. We still are having trouble hearing you. But I do want to say, while we're waiting for Nicole, again, thank you all so much. We still have a lot of people on this evening, and we really appreciate that. And if anyone else, while we're waiting for Nicole, would like to share feedback with us in this space tonight, please let us know. We would love to have it now, but we will talk about how if you don't want to share it tonight, other ways that you can provide it to us later. And we do have another speaker ready. I'm sorry, Nicole, that we're having trouble getting you, being able to hear you. So I apologize. We do have our next speaker, Tom. Are you able to hear us?
Sure.
Hi.
Hi, Laura, just wanted to say hi. And this has been really good so far. Thanks so very much, and looking forward to working with you all from Portland.
Thank you, Tom. Great to see you in this space too. Thank you. And I think we might be slowing down just a little bit in terms of people who would like to provide feedback. I do want to say, if you are on the phone, feel free to provide feedback as well. You can press *9 on your phone, and we can hear you in the room. We'll be able to queue you up if you do that, to provide feedback in this virtual space if you're on the phone. And if you are in the virtual space and not on the phone, then you can use the raise hand button too, and we can get you ready to speak as well. But again, no pressure. You do not have to provide feedback this evening, but if anyone else does, we have about 15 minutes left of the scheduled time. We can always go a little bit longer. And we do have another speaker, and I know we have heard previously, John. Are you able to hear us? John Hancock, are you able to hear us? Just wanted to see if you wanted to provide some additional feedback this evening. And we'll give John a second.
Yeah, this is John. How's
Hi,
that?
John. We can hear you.
I had a meeting today near Spokane, back to West Plains in Washington, with the superintendent of one of the smallest school districts in Washington, in my neighborhood, about 30 students. The school heard the news about the PFOA disaster at Fairchild Air Force Base in 2017. They couldn't get advice from anybody in the school world about what to do, but they cared enough about their students to get their well tested, which wasn't even easy in 2017. So they put in a very expensive system that had to be sort of self-engineered because they couldn't find anybody locally who knew enough about PFOA to make them a filter system. And so they spent a lot of their own money. And then when the Department of Health finally got around to certifying the results, it didn't pass muster at DOH. And DOH was new to this, and the school said they didn't know very much about it either. But system number 2 had to have an engineer stamp in order to get certified by the Department of Health. So they paid 3 times as much money the second time around for a system to provide safe water to that school in 2017. They're still waiting today for somebody to offer some help about how to pay for it, how to make sure that it's certified, what to do about their system. Because the DOH is working hard. There's some people there that I like, but that school system doesn't feel very well served by that clean water agency.
Thank you, John.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Thank you for providing that additional piece of feedback. And if someone does, if you've already gone but would have something else that you thought about, please feel free to get yourself back in the queue like John did. That's okay. We do have a phone number now, 509. I'm gonna just read the area code first. Are you able to hear us?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Hi.
Yay, this is Nicole. Sorry, my
Yes,
for
Nicole.
some reason
Hi. Welcome.
I couldn't get in and you couldn't hear me. I could hear you. I just couldn't hear. Yeah, I couldn't speak. So I called. The reason why I wanted to kind of give you guys a call was I hear a lot of people saying that they would like to know, like to be able to get a map. And I brought this up to our local community of people that are trying to help us. I'm in Yakima, Washington. I'm also a neighbor of Brandy and a couple other callers that called in tonight. I just think that, like, if you guys had a way for us, I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of homeowners that are affected by this that would be totally willing to give up what our wells have been tested at and any health issues that we have. If it's going to be of benefit to you guys, maybe you guys could like block out our addresses, you know, if some people didn't want that. But I know that, you know, like I said, there's local places that are trying to get this information from the Yakima Training Center, and they won't give it up. But I know that our group is totally willing to help. You just have to reach out and ask us. So if that is something that you can do, I'm sure people will be willing to help. You just have to ask. Thank you for allowing me to talk tonight.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I'm so glad we were able to hear you, and thank you for working to get back in via the phone. Those are, again, wonderful pieces of feedback, and thank you. Lots of good reactions too, just so you know, Nicole, in the virtual space to that feedback. And lots of hearts for you, Nicole. And so we do have a couple more people right now in the queue. Again, please feel free to either, if you're on the phone, press *9 or raise your hand if you're in the on your computer or phone. Kevin, are you able to hear us again? I know you provided some feedback earlier. I'll give you a second.
Yes, I'm unmuted. Do you
Hi.
hear me now?
We can hear you now, Kevin. Go for it.
Okay. Thanks, Laura. Hey, I just want to clarify something. So all of us that have given input tonight, this, my understanding from what you said before, this is not really public input. We have to go to the website to restate our concerns, our issues, in order for it to move forward with this process. Is that correct? I mean, that's what I'm hearing from you. And I would just, I need to hear you restate that again and again to all of the participants online so that they know the technicality of that. Is it correct?
Thank you, Kevin, for clarifying that. I know we're just taking feedback this evening, but to clarify that, because that's an important piece, I do want to just mention that briefly, is that tonight we are taking all of this feedback and it's going to inform, we're going to synthesize it. It's going to inform EPA's future work on PFAS. But what we were saying earlier is that if you want to provide feedback on specific rulemakings or work like that, you're going to need to go on to our website and our PFAS website, which we've put in the chat previously. And you can click on key EPA actions to address PFAS. we're actually gonna put that specific link in the chat too. If you go on the general PFAS website, you'll see it, but just so that everyone has it, if we could have our wonderful contractors at LRG put that in the chat, please. If you go to that link, then you'll be able to see exactly, what EPA, has in the hopper regarding providing formal comments. And so, Kevin, it sounds like that's you might be interested in that. Tonight, though, we will be synthesizing all of this feedback as well to help inform our work going forward on the PFAS roadmap. So hopefully that helps clarify a bit more. Thank you. I just want to give, I know we're getting a little late. We still have a lot of people online. So thank you again, everyone, for sticking with us on this. If there is anyone else, I would just want to give an opportunity. If anyone else would like to provide any feedback, you want to raise your hand in the virtual space or press *9. Otherwise, we can start to wrap up for this evening. But we do have another speaker who would like to provide some feedback. Thank you. Colleen, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I can.
Hi, thank you.
Hi, I'm an engineer living the Seattle area, and I just want to echo what I've heard others say, that the funding for the cleanup of PFAS is a huge issue. And it seems as if the onus is on the water districts or, other utilities that aren't responsible for the contamination. And I'd like to see the EPA go after the producers who make they made the PFAS, they sold it, they got the money. I think they should have to be the ones who clean it up. So that's all I got to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Colleen. Lots of reactions to that feedback in the chat, lots of applause. So thank you for sharing that with us. We have another speaker who would like to provide some feedback queued up. Thank you so much. Elaine, are you able to hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Thank
Great.
you.
Okay, I'm calling in from Seattle, and I was following Washington State's rulemaking and actually submitted comments. And one of the concerns that I have is about when people get notified and how they get notified. I know in Seattle, we got an annual report with water quality. And the concern that I expressed to our state is people need to know soon, and they need to be notified in ways that they will, that they'll know something that's either sent directly to them. And then, so another question related to that is, how frequently are these water systems being tested for PFAS? And at what point would you notify the customers that their water has exceeded PFAS numbers?
Thank you, Elaine. I know that was more of a question, but we're going to note that as feedback because we're not responding to anything really tonight. But it's a great, it's a really important piece. So thank you.
Well, yeah, because people have been saying that they don't know about it, and people, like the military bases are withholding information, and the whole issue of public information and letting the public know should be a big part of what you are regulating.
Thank you. That's really it's a very important point, and I thank you. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Lots of some parts. I think with that really important point that Elaine just raised and feedback, we are going to kind of start to wrap up, even though I know we have a lot of folks in, and if you have additional feedback for tonight, and again, just we'll clarify how to provide additional feedback for tonight, how you can do that, and other pieces too. We are going to go ahead and start to wrap up. So we just want to say thank you all for sharing your feedback with us tonight. And before we close, I would like to go ahead and turn to Michael Zerlog to share a few of the major themes that we've heard from all of you who are who provided feedback previously, who might not be on anymore, or who are still on with us this evening, and just can't thank you enough for all of that. So Michael, would you like to go ahead?
Sure. Thanks, Laura, and appreciate that we've heard from all the speakers tonight. There was a lot of great feedback. I know we heard from people from Alaska, Oregon, Washington, and I know we had individuals that signed up to join us tonight from all 4 of our states, including Idaho, and tribal nations. So we really appreciate you being here tonight. We definitely heard appreciation for EPA's work, especially in their drinking water announcement this week. And we also heard you encouraging us to move faster and do as much as we can in areas like biosolids and air emissions. We also heard about the challenging life cycle of PFAS and the potential for PFAS to move in the environment. We heard the critical challenge of paying for PFAS treatment, especially for drinking water, and a specific focus on those of you with private wells or for small water systems. We heard a number of specific examples of contaminated sites here in Region 10. Some with specific examples near military bases that have used the firefighting foam. We also heard a strong recommendation for EPA to continue our research efforts to fill those data gaps about PFAS and a willingness to help with monitoring. We heard recommendations for us to further focus on controlling PFAS at their source, like removing PFAS from products and restricting water discharges. We also heard about challenges you're facing in getting information about PFAS, including how to get testing for you, your families, for animals, and how to understand what those results mean and what to do. And above all, I think we've heard how PFAS is impacting your communities and the critical importance of our work to address those PFAS contamination. So thanks again for all of your feedback tonight, and I'll turn it back to Laura to help close out our meeting.
Thank you so much, Michael, for doing an initial summary of that really critical feedback. Lots of hearts and applause in the chat in the virtual space too. So thank you. And I just want to say, following today's session, I want to highlight that you may continue to share input and feedback after this event via email to the email on the screen. But if you're on the phone, it's pfascouncil@epa.gov. And we're going to put that email in the chat as well, so that you have it. So if some of you, we're here tonight to think about feedback you might want to provide to us, feel free to email that email and provide us with additional feedback. And as we noted earlier, first, the feedback you share with us orally, tonight or via email later, will not be considered as part of the formal comment process. And I mean formal comments. This came up earlier with Kevin, so thank you, for any specific action EPA is taking under the PFAS Strategic Roadmap. And you can find more information on EPA's efforts on PFAS at EPA's website, which, if we could put that one more time in the chat for everyone, that would be wonderful. It's www.epa.gov/PFAS. And on that site, you can find links to each of the major actions that EPA is taking under the PFAS roadmap. And where appropriate, as I mentioned before, links to the formal comment opportunities for each action through an online docket. So those links are on that website. You can find them where you can provide formal public comments where appropriate. And second, we do not plan to individually respond to the feedback that we've received this evening, or if you send us more feedback via that email. But we do plan to synthesize what we've learned from each of our regional sessions to inform EPA's future work on PFAS. So we really, really appreciate everything you've said tonight. Thank you. And before we close, I do just want to mention that in addition to the regional listening sessions, EPA is going to be hosting a tribal listening session on April 6th from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern time, or that would be 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific time. And more information is available on, I bet you all guessed it, our EPA PFAS website, which that link has been put in the chat. So can't say enough good things about that website. Please visit it, maybe bookmark it. And with that, I just want to say thank you all for joining us tonight, and a special thanks to each of you who shared feedback with us today, and for anyone who is planning to share feedback with us later as well via email. I'd also like to thank our regional administrator for Region 10, Casey Sixkiller, also Jennifer McLean from EPA's PFAS Council, thank you. And also our EPA Region 10 colleague, Michael Zerlag, for joining us as well. And also to all of our support tonight, our contract support on the tech side as well. So thank you all so much for joining us. Please have a great night. Take good care, and thank you so much again for providing this feedback. Thank you.